Welcome to the planet.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome to the
Thank you for tuning in to Deborah Kobylt Live, and we've got a great show for you today. On the phone with us, calling me from Connecticut, or home in Connecticut, we've got Colleen Kelly Alexander. Colleen is a lifelong athlete, a motivational speaker, and author of Gratitude in Motion, a true story of hope, determination, and the everyday heroes around. Now, your story is so shocking in a way, and the fact that you're even standing and moving, and now you're doing races, is unbelievable. So why don't you tell us what happened to you back in 2011, would you please?
Sure. So I was cycling. So basically, my office was about 12 miles from my home. And I used to ride my bike into work. I commuted via bicycle. And so I was called in on a Saturday work meeting. And a beautiful, perfect day. And had a great meeting on my way home. I was halfway home and a freight truck blew a stop sign and ran me over with front and back sets of tires. And so I never made it home. I was ripped apart pretty badly. I was brought to Yale Medical Center and flatlined within about a minute and a half of getting to the trauma bay, and wound up getting resuscitated multiple times. Thankfully, was resuscitated for one of the last times, and they left me in an induced coma. I had about 50% of my body ripped apart, and it started the fight. I was in a coma for about 5.5 weeks, and then was in the hospital and continued in a rehab hospital for a couple months after that.
Now, you said you were in a coma for 5.5 weeks, and I read, and we spoke yesterday on the phone, that you were able to hear and see and smell things. Now, people think you're laying there in a coma and you can't really hear anything, but you heard an awful lot. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, when you're for myself, so I was in an induced coma, and basically the reason they kept me induced was because the doctors had said that if they would have tried to allow me to be awake and aware of what was going on, I would have just died because of the pain that was going on, and I was in and out of so many surgeries. So induced coma, essentially I could feel my lungs expanding. I could, I had a machine breathing for me. I had, fluid feeding me, and basically I was unable to do anything for myself. And I could sense that people were in the room. I could see colors and movement, but my eyes wouldn't be able to fix on anyone. So to my family, I just looked like I was basically out of it. My eyes were kind of staring hollowed. But to me, I was very much present. My brain just couldn't understand exactly what was going on because of all the heavy medication and the damage that had gone on to my body and my brain. So I think it's important, my family thankfully treated me as though I was aware of what was going on, and that was really helpful for me. They didn't just look at me as I was locked in that shell. They loved and they talked to me very positively, and that was really important.
I mean, absolutely. Could you imagine hearing something like, geez, I don't know if she's going to make it, or I don't know, we'll give it another day or two, and you're in there saying, no, I'm okay. So you never heard anything like that, did you? Or let's do this to her, and let's try this procedure. Anything like that scared the daylights out of you?
The only thing, so there were definitely things that scared the daylights out of me. For one, when I was having wound care treatments, which I needed several hours of wound care a day, just due to the magnitude. I was ripped apart very, very badly from right above my knees all the way up past around my stomach, and I had a lot of I had drains and tubes, and I had a colostomy bag, and so they would come in and they'd have to roll my body from side to side and cleanse and scrub and all that stuff, and my brain couldn't translate what was happening. So my brain just knew that I was feeling a lot of pain and pressure, and that there were a lot of people around me, and the way that my brain translated it was that I was being attacked.
Right.
So unfortunately, it induced a lot of fear and a lot of nightmares. And then there was a time that I was about to go in for surgery, and they were weaning off the medications that had me in an induced coma, and then they were putting me back on. When you go under, you have a general anesthesia. So they must have thought they had the right amount of medication for the to start the surgery, and they didn't. And so I was able to understand the words that were happening in the OR, and I could feel them starting to get me ready for surgery, and I knew where I was. And so I was trying to move a finger. In my mind, I was screaming and I was convulsing everywhere to let them know that I wasn't really asleep, but apparently I was just like literally moving a finger.
And they didn't see that. They didn't. Oh my goodness, that's just so traumatic.
So
they did. You said.
So thankfully, yeah.
I'm moving my finger just hearing this. I really am. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Colleen.
Yeah. No, it's okay. One of the nurses commented that my finger was moving, and then I remember hearing someone else say, "I wonder if she's having a seizure." And then someone walked over, and I just remember a masked, blurry face looking at me saying maybe she's not, she wasn't given enough medication. And then it went black. So thank God I was able to at least move a finger or let them know, or I most likely would have been aware and locked in that state and, mindful that I was having surgery.
Everyone in the studio is shaking their head like, oh my God. So, okay, this massive freight truck runs you down with these massive tires, flattens you, backs up. I mean, essentially you're flattened. You had so much damage and you've had 29 plus surgeries. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
How do you, once you finally came through, I think you were in the induced coma 5.5 months, and you realized what happened, you realized, sadly, that you very likely would not be able to have children. Is that correct?
Correct.
And I know that's very difficult. And someone who's been a triathlete, and here you are laying there, 29 surgeries in, thinking, now what? What goes through your mind?
So just to clarify, it was 5.5 weeks.
Oh, sorry about that.
At the point that I was at, no, that's okay. At the point that I was in the coma, I had but by the time I got out of the surgical intensive care unit, I had about 15 surgeries. So then I had four more years of surgeries after I got back home. And I'm so sorry. Ask me the question that you
No, that's okay, because you were very clear with me even on the phone that sometimes maybe you even lose track of what you're thinking a little bit. But when you're sitting there, 15 surgeries in at that point, then what are you thinking? Like, how am I ever going to get on a bike again? How will I walk again? Or did you immediately say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get up again. I'm going to walk. What was going on in your mind?
No, initially when I was still at Yale, after I came out of the induced coma, I was basically just horrified. I had yet to understand the magnitude of what had happened to my body. And I was just in so much pain, and I was so scared because I knew that, for the last month and a half, I had been basically being cared for 24/7 and had no say-so of what was going on with my body. And I had all these dreams that were happening through all the medications and surgeries that I didn't know if they were true or if it was, something that happened just in my mind. So there was a lot of initial, acute, it wouldn't even be PTSD at that point. It would just be acute mental trauma going on. And it really took a couple weeks until I started feeling little glimmers of, we're going to get through this.
Wow.
And we're going to, do what we can to make it work. And, but yeah, initially I was devastated because I was just laying in this, I was just laying in a hospital bed and knowing that I went from being a really active wife and a very attractive, I was very happy with my body and had a great, physical relationship with my husband, and suddenly I'm ripped apart and, tubed and I can't move. So I had a lot of, just fear also with, am I ever going to be that wife that I once was before? Is my husband going to love me?
Shout out to Sean. Shout out to your husband, Sean, who's been a great, great husband to you. I mean, a lot of people wouldn't be able to be that strong, and he's been by your side the whole time. That's tough on him to sit by and wonder if you're going to make it. sit by and wonder how you're going to live your lives together. And he was there the whole time, wasn't he?
Yeah, never left the side. So the first 5.5 weeks, he would actually, for the first 2 weeks, he didn't leave the hospital. He stayed in the family waiting area and would shower and do whatever he could in the hospital. And then he had to go back to work. And so he would go to work in the morning, and then he would come back and he would sleep in the waiting room because he wasn't allowed in the intensive care unit overnight. So he could be there in the middle of the night when they did rounds. You know, he would have his watch set, and he'd get up and go into the ICU and be there when the nurses and doctors came in and spoke. And then at the rehab hospital, he was there at my side every single night.
Well, you do need a
for all of
watchdog.
those months as well.
You need a watchdog. You need somebody there. You really do, because I don't know, just in case something was going on in the middle of the night and they weren't really observant at the time, you just need somebody in there. Now, the first responders and the folks who donated all that blood, because you wouldn't have made it without all those pints of blood. How much blood did you end up getting? The transfusions. How many transfusions?
I had 78 units in the first 2.5 days.
Wow.
So my femoral artery was ripped as well. So between the pelvic being ripped, you know, my pelvis was ripped apart, my bone structure, my iliac crest was popped off, and then all the just damage to the abdomen and legs, and of course the femoral. That's why I kept dying, is because I just couldn't keep my heart beating because I kept bleeding out. So 78 units just to start, and that included platelets and plasma, which takes 5 people's donations for one of those units. So, you know, I'm literally alive because hundreds and hundreds of people had to roll up their sleeves to donate blood, because it's, you know, if you were to think there's just 100 people needed for just the platelets and probably a little over 100 people for the plasma, you know, and then the whole blood, it's amazing.
I want to make sure that I ask you about the American Red Cross later as well, because I know that you do a lot with them because you've been feeling so grateful. But let's fast forward a little bit. So you're out of the hospital. Clearly you need days, months, years of rehab. You are now, how many, since this has happened, you've run 50 races, that's 50, and you've completed 40 events. What kind of events have you completed? It's mind-boggling for me to imagine that you were laying there just torn to shreds, and 7 years later, you've participated in 50 events. So, and completed 40 of them. So how did you get the mindset to do that?
Well, I think being an athlete in the past was a blessing and a curse, because I had that
the drive,
that desire to want to be, yeah. And at the same time, it was a huge downer because I knew I'd never be able to be the athlete that I once was, and I was that much harder on myself. However, you know, when you do an event, if you do a half marathon, you do a marathon, you do a triathlon, you tend to get a medal at the finish. And as I began learning about how many heroes I had, you know, just my trauma surgeons alone, my team and my nurses and people that gave me CPR and physical therapists and EMTs, and, you know, just the list goes on and on and on. I thought, my God, I'm literally, it's not just me anymore. It's, you know, I'm this product of heroes, and how can I say thank you and give back? So doing races and getting a medal, and then being able to give that medal to a hero and say thank you for being a part of, you know, me being able to be alive today, became my impetus. And I had so many surgeries moving forward that I needed to keep my body, mostly my heart, as healthy as possible, my circulatory system as healthy as possible, because, you know, I'm going back under anesthesia. So I knew I could no longer train to place, but what I could do is train to get as strong as possible
and get that medal,
and then go back under. Yeah, get the medal, give it away, and then go back under anesthesia.
Hey,
again.
I get the whole thing with the medal, because my kids are always like, because I was a skater, my kids are like, you weren't an athlete. I'm like, yeah, you want to bet? So last year I did the LA Marathon with not that much training, and then I did not do it to place, but I wanted that medal, and I'm like, I'm going to get that medal. I'm going to cross that finish line in time, and I'm getting it. And then I thought, I think I'll do it again. So I did the New York Marathon in November. I was very inspired. I'm like, really? But I have 3 of them, so now I have to do one more marathon. I'm thinking of which one to do this year. And I'm really not in the best shape because of my knee. I have knee problems. But in some small way. I know what you're talking about. You want the medal, and it's a real impetus to finish something, you know. And in your case, you
Yeah,
had a medal to give to
absolutely.
somebody.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a huge, my medal from the last half marathon I did went to our chief of police
Oh,
here
that's
in
nice.
Madison because of the incredible work that he has done in our community around cycling and pedestrian safety since the traumas happened. And, you know, it was really neat to be able to go to him and place a medal around his neck and just say, you know, thank you for being a part of this,
Wow.
you know, making things safer.
So we can all learn an awful lot from you. So now you're a motivational speaker. You go around the country, around the world, and you obviously talk about your trauma and what got you out of it to then talk to other people and say, look, if I can beat this in your darkest day, you can come out of it too. Like, how do you reach people? That's hard to do.
By being as raw and unfiltered as I possibly can.
Yeah.
I
It's
think,
true.
you know,
Transparency.
from what I know of you, it seems like you're pretty good at that too. You know, the more that we can put down that veil of what people expect of us and what, you know, just letting people be and being authentic and going in and talking to people and saying, this is what happened, and life is never going to be simple. You know, as long as we're alive, crap happens, and it's always going to happen. And how can we work together to realize that we are still powerful, we're still strong, we still, you know, we're just different. You know,
it's
trauma
hard.
for me happened.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say trauma for me happened in a really big way, but trauma happens to all of us.
It's very true. It happens to all of us at different times, in different ways, and we all process it differently. And I just often wonder, someone in their darkest moment, their true darkest, you know, just grabbing them, you know, and saying, you can get through this. You might not think you can today, but just be here until tomorrow, and then try and get through the next day. Because we've all been through something, and we wondered, God, how will I ever get through it? And if you got through it, good Lord, I'm certain that you're going to give somebody the inspiration that they can too. Whatever it is they're suffering from. How often do you go and travel and speak around, I'm guessing the country? Around the country you're talking, right?
We do. Yep. And I'll be in Toronto next month for I think it's the equivalent of the Good Morning America for Canada. So we've done the show Astro in Australia as well. So now that we're on book tour, we are speaking like every other day, it seems. And we'll be on book tour through the end of December. So we're busy. We're, you know, traveling around, and we're sharing the story, and the purpose of the book is not just to share my story, but to really express that we're, it's our story, because I'm only here because of the collective group of people.
And I love the title, Gratitude in Motion, because you were on your bike when this happened. And you're a woman that's in motion. You always were, and you still are. It's really an outstanding book. It's terrific. And people can actually pick it up. Amazon, correct? Anywhere else where people can pick up your book?
Yeah, they can go to any of their local bookstores. And if the store doesn't have it, ask for it. But yeah, I know it's at Barnes & Nobles. I know that Costco and Sam's Club also has been selling it.
There you go,
you can
Costco.
Find it almost anywhere. I'm sorry?
There you go, Costco. I mean, that's terrific. How many times have I gone into Costco for little things I need, and I end up at the book table? They actually have some great stuff over there. It's true.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was at Costco, but someone from out west sent me a picture and said, I was in Costco, and look, here's your book.
What's the big shout out that you want to say to people who are listening and watching right now?
You are more capable than you know. And so never underestimate yourself, and to be gentle with yourself. You know, we have to believe in who we are. We have to fall in love with who we are, and we have to be okay not being okay sometimes. And I know that sounds weird, but it's just true. You know,
it does
life
sound
is
weird,
never
but
going to be unicorns and rainbows. That's just not the way life happens. So we have to really just embrace each breath and learn to grow from it.
Also, I imagine your talks are on YouTube. People also can take a look there if they need to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, they can also go to my website, which is just ColleenKellyAlexander.com. There's quite a few like TV shows. The most recent one was the Hallmark Channel out in LA, and that interview is on as well. Yeah, and there's a lot that if you just Google my name, it seems like all sorts of good stuff is popping up.
All sorts of great stuff is popping up because you're doing all sorts of great things. And shout out also to the American Red Cross that you do work with as well, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. The Red Cross mission is a powerful one. It is across the globe, and I love the Red Cross in so many ways, but mostly because there is there's no judgment.
They give, yeah.
Race, religion, where we're from. It's taking care of the family, the human family, and alleviating suffering. So,
well said, Colleen Kelly Alexander, author of Grace in Motion. You're an athlete and a motivational speaker. Next stop will be Toronto, where you're speaking. Thank you so much for coming on our show. I've enjoyed talking to you.
Thanks for having me.
Reading about you and reading your book and everything else. And I look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks again.
Okay, take care. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow, that was something, huh? In my worst day, I can't imagine. I have to tell you, she had incredible care, because she really was flattened. There was very little of her left. She was in shreds. Oh, God. So, incredible story. Anyway, thanks for being here, everybody, for another interesting edition of Deborah Kobylt Live. And we'll be back in a minute.